in glove with the State Emergency Operations Center, which where we are now. And the State Operations Center is, of course, deploying those resources, those personnel to both prepare and pre-position, as Nancy mentioned, the equipment, the personnel across the state, and then to be able to respond very quickly. We also have additional departments that are figuring in all day, every day over the last several days. That includes the California Conservation Corps, 1,300 Corps members strong, 56 crews being deployed across the state for the flood fight. Our CAL FIRE personnel in all local units are ready and able to respond to emergencies as they evolve, and in fact, several are right now. Our state parks personnel, same, engaged on a regional and local level addressing needs, even as 85 state parks are either fully or partially closed. Now, investments that our state leaders have made are coming to bear in real time here during the drought. The governor, the legislature invested hundreds of millions of dollars in so-called atmospheric river research to better understand this phenomenon of intense storms coming off the Pacific. Believe it or not, thanks to this investment and a partnership with the federal government and the U.S. Air Force, there is a C-130 that has actually been flying off the coast into this atmospheric river to collect data in real time that's feeding into these evolving models to give us a better indication of how intense these storms will be and where they will hit. State leaders have also invested over $700 million since 2019 in flood infrastructure. That's things like strengthening levees, expanding weirs, which is coming to bear. And that state investment attracted over about $2.4 billion of federal investment that has gone into strengthening our flood protection infrastructure. But look, let's not sugarcoat it. While we are deploying some of the world's most advanced technology to predict the threats we now face, Mother Nature is full of surprises. So it's clear that we have to be ready. So I'll conclude with 4 things that we can all do to keep ourselves, our families, our communities safe. First, stay safe, stay dry, and stay home. If you don't have to be traveling during peak periods of the storm, please don't. Be prepared for power outages and other interruptions. Have those flashlights, the candles, batteries, charged cell phones at the ready. Number 3, check on a vulnerable neighbor. Seniors, the homebound, we have to protect each other and keep each other safe during these intense storms. And then lastly, follow emergency directives. We have professionals that know these threats well. We have public safety personnel that are working 24 hours a day to keep us safe, and we help them by following those emergency directives. So with that said, I will turn it over to my colleague, Major General Matthew Beavers of the California National Guard.
Thanks, Wade. I wanted to give you a sense this afternoon of the scope and scale of the Guard response so far. Right now, we have 28 high water vehicles arrayed across the state to help first responders, both local, state, tribal, county, folks to ensure that they can navigate in waters that potentially locals can't do. In addition to that, we have 3 rescue helicopters also currently deployed, 2 here and 1 in the Bay Area, 1 up north, so actually 4. We also have an MP company, the 270th MP company, on standby. We also have the 649th Engineer Company on standby to provide a menu of consequence management capabilities in case those are needed. Again, centrally located here so we can deploy them rapidly across the state. And with that, I'll be followed by Kim Johnson, the Director of Social Services.
Thank you, General. The California Health and Human Services Agency continues to mobilize across the state. We've prioritized people who are unsheltered, those who are older or medically vulnerable, people with disabilities, as well as those residing in our congregate settings, whether they be medical or non-medical. With the Department of Social Services, we are grateful for the partnership of local counties and the American Red Cross, who are currently supporting 11 congregate shelters across California in 6 counties, as well as additional non-congregate sites. In addition, 14 additional shelters are pre-staged across 9 counties that are ready to quickly stand up within 2 hours as needed. Temporary shelter, food, and additional resources are available at these sites. All are welcome. No identification is required. In addition, many counties currently have warming centers open and available to support unsheltered persons and other populations that have been impacted. You can check local county websites as well as www.cdss.ca.gov to find these locations. In addition, the Department of Social Services and the Department of Public Health continue to provide up-to-date information and resources for the adult and senior care settings, skilled nursing facilities, and other operators of licensed programs. These operators are required to have emergency plans in place to ensure the health and safety of residents in their care. Any facilities who have been evacuated as a result of the weather and have a new temporary location, those sites are available at dss.ca.gov. And also you can reach the statewide long-term care ombudsperson. Their crisis line is available 24/7 at 1-800-231-4024. In addition, the Emergency Medical Services Authority has pre-positioned assets and staged ambulance strike teams to be prepared. The Department of Public Health is proactively engaging with healthcare partners that are most likely to be impacted. Our hospital partners continue to battle the effects of various respiratory viruses, including COVID as well, and we thank them for all that they're doing. It is not too late to prepare. Visit our website at chhs.ca.gov and download your template to create your personal emergency plan. This is especially important for those who have access or functional needs. Again, each of us can do our part by checking in on our neighbors, connecting with the older people in your life, and other support to persons who might need help. And finally, given all that's going on, we recognize you may be overwhelmed, and if you would like to just talk to someone to get some additional support and someone who will listen with compassion, counselors are available right now at 1-833-317-HOPE or 1-833-317-4673. Also, you can visit the website calhope.org. With that, I'm glad to turn it over to the California Highway Patrol's Acting Commissioner, Sean Dury.
Thank you, Director. Good afternoon. First responders, including CHP officers, have been deployed throughout the state and have been assisting people in response to the winter storms that we're experiencing. Flooded roadways, downed trees, and power lines are making travel particularly difficult. If at all possible, we're encouraging you and asking you to please postpone travel in those areas to allow cleanup crews and power companies to do their jobs. If you are out on the roads, treat all downed power lines as if they're live. Don't try to move them, don't try to drive over them, and please just report their location. Watch for falling and downed trees. Trees are posing a significant threat in this storm due to the high winds and severely saturated soil. The number one thing you can do to ensure your safety while driving during these storms is slow down. Please do not ignore road closure signs or attempt to cross flooded roadways. This is very dangerous and a risk that's simply not worth taking. And I'm going to add my voice to those that have been given today. If you are asked to evacuate, please do so. Have a plan and be prepared. CHP officers, along with other first responders, have increased staffing for the storms and are ready to assist you. If you need our help or if you have an emergency, please call or text 911. Thank you and stay safe. And with that, I will turn it over to the Deputy Director of Caltrans, Mike Keever.
Thank you, Acting Commissioner. So, Mike Keever, Caltrans. Right now, we're doing everything we can to keep the roadways open, but safety is and will remain our #1 priority. We have over 4,000 of our maintenance crews that are out there doing everything they can whenever there's a break to open the roadways back up. I do want to reiterate the message. If there is a closure, please, it may not be apparent to you where we place the closure, what the hazard is, but there is a hazard, and we ask that you do not go around it. We will pick up the closure as soon as it is safe. We're working with all of the entities here and with local officials to take the steps in the event of an evacuation. We have our traffic operations staff ready with detours as needed. Again, if you can avoid travel, we ask that you do that. We have our CMS message signs that are out there that will provide additional information as the situation changes. If you do want information, I want to encourage you to use the Quick Map app. It provides push notifications, gives you the latest information on the roadway closures. and real-time information on when they'll be reopened. Again, if you can stay home, we encourage you to do so. If you do see Caltrans and other highway workers out there, please, they're out there for your safety. Let's return the favor. Let's make sure that they all return home as well, and let's keep them safe. So please slow down. Please move over. Let's be safe and stay safe. Thank you. Governor.
Appreciate it. So, we've been at this how many days, and expect to see the worst of it still in front of us. And I think that's the message we want to underscore today. We're anticipating some very intense weather coming in tomorrow evening in particular, into the early hours of Tuesday morning. And that's the imperative that we're trying to express here, is the seriousness of purpose in terms of just being safe and being thoughtful. Use your common sense. You heard that from a number of the speakers here over the course of the last few moments, and that is don't test fate. Nancy said it well. I mean, just a foot of water and your car's floating. Half a foot of water, you're off your feet. Half a foot of water, you're losing control of your vehicle. We're seeing people go around these detours because they don't see any obstacles. They think everything is fine, and putting their lives at risk, or putting first responders' lives at risk. And so it's really important that people are mindful and, again, just use their common sense. I know, and listen to Kim, I know what was going through my mind when she talked about people's minds and the stress, the stacking of stress that we've been through over the course of the last number of years. And here we go, this weather whiplash from one extreme to the other. It's just a few months ago we were talking about these heat domes and the extreme heat. It was just literally a month ago down in Southern California, they took their drought declaration that impacted about 6 million people and extended it to 19 million people because of the severity of the drought. That was just 30 days ago, and here we are 30 days later talking about number 5 on our way to number 6, maybe 7, atmospheric river in just a matter of weeks. Wade is right. We know a thing or two about atmospheric rivers. That term was coined here out of our universities here in the state of California. Not only are we mindful of the frame and reference, we're very experienced in understanding them in terms of the natural realities and the acuity and the intensity of these atmospheric rivers. But I think part of that acuity and intensity has led, as Wade said, to a deeper understanding and a sophistication in terms of our data, our modeling, and our forecasting. These C-130s that are going in to these storms brought back information that we, a year ago, would never have had. We wouldn't have been privy to. Even with all of the fancy satellite technology and all the federal resources, we wouldn't have had the resources that we've been provided and provided ourselves through our appropriations had we not invested in these technologies and these tools and developing a deeper consciousness, because we are deeply mindful of living in this new normal of extremes. We talk about weather whiplash. We talk about extremes as it relates to Mother Nature. People have referred to global warming now as climate change, to global weirding. Hot's, I've said it 100 times. Hot's getting a lot hotter, dry is getting a lot drier, but the wet's getting a lot wetter as well. And as a consequence of this, not only in terms of our deeper understanding and our consciousness as it relates to our lived realities, but also in terms of policy making, we're moving dramatically in different directions. We put out $8.7 billion in investments to address the issue of infrastructure related to droughts. In that infrastructure plan, it's not specific to droughts. It's specific to conveyance. It's specific to strategies on stormwater capture and groundwater replenishment. It's specific to strategies as it relates to dealing with these extremes and capturing more of the flood flow during times like this. Wade referenced $700 million and $738 million that we've invested in the last 2 years specifically in strategies in this space. We are going to be requesting on Tuesday with my budget that is already in print an additional $200 million, $202 million to be exact, of the legislature for more resources specific for levees and urban flood protection. We have a flood plan in this state. We have a Central Valley flood plan people are very familiar with in this state. We have a flood operations center in addition to this state operations center that we have stood up because, again, this is familiar territory for us in the state. That said, we are dealing with an acuity, though, with these stacking of atmospheric rivers that do put pressure and, again, require, again, deeper consciousness in this moment. We were just down ourselves, the team, walking some of the sites with our Conservation Corps team members that were out there filling up sandbags, protecting some of the levees near Deer Creek. We were down around the Wilton area, Consumas River, seeing a number of sites. Anyone that's traveled around or just watched on television as news crews, thanks for all your good work. You've seen, these, trees that have collapsed and smashed cars, homes. We're seeing a lot of what we would expect with these high wind events. That said, the winds were unexpectedly higher than we thought last night. And I just want to underscore, when it comes to wind, a little less precise than precipitation in terms of our modeling. And that's where tomorrow night in particular, we have some additional concerns around the unexpected higher gusts in addition to the intensity of the actual precipitation and the flooding. We expect, because the storm is now moving south a little bit, San Jose area, particularly around commute time, could be particularly challenging. Obviously, the Modesto area, Merced, and others have been top of mind. We've listed, as was noted by Carla, we had 17 high-profile sites of creeks and rivers that we had identified, quite literally putting dots that we've made public and working with local officials. It's down to about 11. It's not comforting that it's only 11, but it is encouraging. It's down from that peak of 17. It doesn't mean things are getting better, just means things are shifting a little bit to the south. And as a consequence, we're dealing with different challenges now, perhaps a little more of an urban challenge than some of the Central Valley and Northern California challenges that we had originally modeled even 48 or 36 hours ago. We've been in contact consistently with the White House, with the Chief of Staff, Ron Klain, who's been nothing short of spectacular in proactively reaching out. We will be reaching out formally within the next hour or so under the Stafford Act, requesting of the White House approval through FEMA Region 9 of an emergency declaration to get this full support of the federal government in our efforts, which we have all the confidence that we'll receive based upon the conversations with the White House. So that formal request is being advanced, as I said, within the next hour. This is in addition to the emergency declaration that we passed statewide last Wednesday. We are doing all we can to be as proactive as we can. You heard about all the prepositioning of assets, how CalGuard's doing their best to preposition in counties all across this state, not just individuals, but hard assets, these 28 vehicles that allow for supplemental support, local emergency crews, obviously the mutual aid system, second to none here in the state of California. We've got urban search and rescue teams out in addition to the helicopters and the other resources that were advanced. You heard Caltrans got hundreds of crews up and down the state, and we're working to make sure that we have the support to supplement with our local officials. We continue to, around the clock, be working closely with our local emergency offices as well as local electeds to make sure that they have the resources they need. I'm mindful as these storms go through, particularly for locals, that their work begins after those acute events, and that's cleanup, and that's dealing with some of these high flows. Russian River area, Guerneville, very familiar with some of those challenges. So in the next few days, going through the extended week, going to be a challenging time for us here in the state of California, but as always, we're up for it. I'll just close with what Director Ward said, because it is, I think, important just in underscoring the why we're here and why we are trying to be sober about the next 24 to 48 hours. With all the focus, understandably, on California wildfires, it has been a very sad truth. In the last 10 days, 12 people have lost their lives to these floods, 12 people. Again, more than have lost their lives, civilians, that is, to wildfires in the last 2 years. These floods are deadly and have now turned to be more deadly than even the wildfires here in the state of California. Common sense, just be cautious over the course of the next week, again, particularly the next day or two. So proud of the team, proud of the good work. Couldn't be more satisfied and grateful by the federal response, Region 9, the FEMA director herself proactively engaged, the White House, the chief of staff level. Every request we have made has been granted. And again, I want to extend my thank you to the California legislature that over the course of the last few years has not only put out record resources to focus on how we can modernize our conveyance and diversion and water system to meet these new realities, but has also been incredibly supportive of our targeted master plan for water. We went from 142 action items a few years ago to a 2040 water plan we put out in August of last year that numerically has targets in terms of storage, 4 million acre feet of storage that we put out. They have helped fund that plan and advance that strategy in a meaningful way. And I think that goes to a lot of questions that people have, including those in my household, with these storms. Does that mean the drought ends soon? With these storms, how can we capture more of these floodwaters? With these storms and a deeper understanding that we may not have the normalcy of these extended years in terms of traditional rainfall and have more peak rainfall, how are we modernizing our diversion and conveyance and infrastructure to meet that new reality? That plan lays out in detail the funding from the legislature, making that plan real. A lot of work to do, mindful of that, but there's a vision and there's a strategy, and we recognize the urgency of the moment to implement and to make sure that we are prepared, not just for this week in the storms, not just for the next year or two, but for the next decades to come as we tackle the most impactful force in our lives, and that's Mother Nature. With that, we're happy to answer any questions.
Governor Ashley Zavala, Case Area 3. With more than 424,000 people without power right now, potentially compounding issues with the wind events expected, what is the communication like with utility companies between the state and
Constant, never-ending, not just with the private IOUs like PG&E, but SMUD. SMUD in particular that's been challenged in the last 24 hours, as you know. I think we were peak, depends on how you analyze it, 540,000 households and businesses, 520, 30,000 folks. We still have work to do, as Director Ward mentioned, to get the power back on. Mindful, again, that it was the winds last night. Some predicted, some that were more acute than had anticipated. And that's our big concern going forward. And that's why I appreciate what Secretary Crowfoot said in terms of just being prepared with your own flashlights, own household equipment as it relates to batteries, and making sure that you're protecting yourself, particularly, again, during those peak hours of the storm coming in Monday and Tuesday, Monday evening into the late hours, and early into Tuesday morning.
Director Ward said last week that the current state of emergency that you declared allows out-of-state resources to come in and help. Has there been a need so far yet to do that?
Not at the level that we can anticipate, but notably for PG&E,
Yeah,
significantly.
PG&E brought in out-of-state resources in as far as Canada, and they'll be rotating them in. With the shift to more outages at SMUD, they'll also be providing mutual aid to SMUD. PG&E will too, so they'll rotate those as they need it in from other states as well.
Are those resources for manpower, equipment, all the above?
All the above.
Okay.
Yeah, they were sitting there waiting at the Oregon border for that signature. They kept knocking on my door, said, "Get off the phone," and move them down. But look, the resources, our capacity to surge is substantially greater than what we've currently required, and that's a big part of under the Stafford Act of what we're requesting the president and the administration today. And without what we're asking for the feds is somewhat unique in this respect. It's more, I think, analogous to what you would see with a hurricane. There's anticipatory framework, and so we laid the foundation of that in the conversations with the chief of staff, that because of the sophistication now in the modeling, the deeper understanding of these atmospheric rivers, our own research in addition to the federal research that's been done, the collective wisdom is we know what's coming, and in anticipating that, we're better off getting ahead of it as it relates to this request than waiting for the actual event to occur. And so, again, it's the nature of the times. While this is a unique request in advance of, in so many ways, it's I think, a preview of things to come.
Mr. Governor and Mr. CHP Acting Director, thank you both for taking the time. Quickly, in terms of the message to Californians about those flooded roads.
Yeah, I'm gonna let the guys in uniform talk about that. They'll listen to them more closely.
Can you just go over the dangers and the message to Californians about not going through those streets?
Yeah, absolutely, and we've seen it time and time in the over the past week. But drivers are going around road closure signs, and they're entering waters that they think they can traverse. And like the director mentioned, in 12 inches of water, your vehicle will start to float. You add to that a little current, and the vehicle is quickly swept off the roadway into deeper waters, into ditches and canals and fields, and that's where you create a really true life-threatening emergency. And we've seen it time and time again here in Sac County. In South Sac County, there were several vehicles that were swept hundreds of feet from the roadway. So, yeah.
I think what happens, you're an expert, but you see this, just because someone else does it doesn't make it right. I mean, I seem to say that to my kids almost an hourly basis. And so you say, well, there's a big rig, and well, that person's doing it, I'll just follow the big rig. You saw that on 99. So people just, again, be hyper vigilant and cautious. And without belaboring the again and again, commute tomorrow in some of our urban areas, particularly in the Bay Area and the San Jose area, is projected to be particularly challenging. And so I think what you just heard is incredibly important. And we'll be talking a lot more about that tomorrow morning. And we've been crystal clear with our local emergency officers of the importance of doing that as well at the local basis in terms of their messaging.
Else?
With that, just want to, again, thank everybody. Team's been up. I think I've been with you the last 5 days upstairs. And, this is a familiar place for all of us. But, this is, I think, a preview. This is what they all projected. This is what those climate scientists all were telling us about. And it's all coming to a reality here in the state of California. But we're up for it, and I couldn't be more pleased and proud of my team. And again, I'll just close by saying, because it's important and it's also a preview of the budget we'll be submitting on Tuesday, how wonderful it is to have partnership with our legislature in terms of their recognition of these challenges and the resources they have provided the state of California that we are currently utilizing and will be investing over the course of the next few years. Thank you all very much.